And we're live. Welcome to this episode of Melapress Live. Thank you everyone for joining. Before we dive into today's discussion, some updates from our end from Melapress. Last week we released an update of WP Activity Log. It's mostly a maintenance update, but it's got a good performance update in regards to multi-site networks. It has a tweak specifically for multi-site networks. The weeks before, we also released an update of Melapress File Monitor, which is a free plugin we have. It's a file integrity monitor plugin. So basically, it checks if any files were changed on your WordPress website or the permissions were changed, etc. We also released an update 2 weeks ago of WP2FA. And yeah, so that's in terms of releases. Next week, we are heading to CloudFest in Germany, and I'll also be participating at the hackathon and contributing there. So looking forward to contributing and networking. And if anyone will be there, please come join us. Ping me on LinkedIn or something, and I'm more than happy to get in touch. Today, we'll be talking about forms, email deliverability, the systems behind the WordPress workflows. And today, I'm joined today by Matt from Gravity Forms. Hello, Matt. How are you?
Hey, Robert. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Nice. Glad. I'm sure a lot of people, you're one of those people, like many people know in the WordPress ecosystem. You've had your long-running podcast, The Met Reports. You've also had the WP Minute, right? This the other podcast.
Yep.
But you're also
Yep.
part
Matt
of the
Report.
Genius team. Yeah. Tell us about tell us about your podcast first. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Matt Report, WP Minute is where a lot of folks know me. Day job, however, at Gravity Forms, where I do host the Breakdown podcast, which you can find at gravityforms.com/breakdown. If you're somebody who's like really into Gravity Forms and you want to learn what people are doing with Gravity Forms, Breakdown, you can just search for it in your podcast player as well. Great place to be to learn more about Gravity Forms and how people are using it. Last year, yes. Last year, we also launched Crew Collective at crewcollectivepodcast.com. This is a non-software podcast. If you want something that's more about space, something that's a little bit more entertaining, and it's not about WordPress, Crew Collective Podcast, you can search for that as well in your podcast app. That's another show that I have produced for Gravity Forms Season 2 coming soon.
Interesting. Is it about space?
So season 1 is about creators, artists, musicians, photographers, authors who have made things about space. So we've interviewed people who have done like photojournalism, prints for space exploration. We've interviewed people who make music or soundtracks for space for different projects, whether it's a film or just like indie music. It's the whole theme of it is obviously space because of gravity. In season 2, which is coming, season 2, which is coming, is going to be about things that went up into space. So objects made on Earth that have traveled up to space that are fun and interesting. And season 2 will be coming probably by the end of the summer. So fun stuff.
Nice, definitely. I got the connection there between gravity and space. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
For those which I doubt who don't know, but yeah, for those who don't know, today you join us as part of Gravity Forms. Gravity Forms is one of the first, and I'm not sure if it's first, but yeah, one of the oldest and definitely most widely used Forms plugin for WordPress, right?
Yes. Yeah. 16 years. I think 2026 is now 16 years. But yeah, certainly one of the first commercial plugins that I ever used when I ran an agency, which was back in 2007. Pretty sure it was the first commercial WordPress license I ever bought. I still pay for that license. In fact, Carl won't give it to me for free. So I still pay for it and happily pay for it. And so many customers do. So yeah, they've had a fantastic, history of running in WordPress.
Yeah, I've used it myself a couple of times. I still use it, and yeah, I think the quality of the plugin speaks for itself because it's one of those few plugins there was never a free edition, right? It's a premium only. Yeah,
premium only. Yeah, premium only, not in the WordPress.org repo. We have like some utility stuff that's in the repo. You can buy it on if you're on WordPress.com and you have a WordPress.com account, you can buy it in the WordPress.com marketplace. But yeah, one of the few, again, commercial plugins in the WordPress space that doesn't have that freemium model. As a marketer, as somebody who works on the marketing team, I love it and hate it at the same time, because it would be amazing to be able to, like, hey, we get this free thing and you could do this stuff. But at the same time, like, it does allow us to strictly focus on the customers who exchange money for value with our software, and allows us to stay really focused on, hey, we've got paying customers, this is what they're asking for, and this is how we're shipping it, versus just like a freely distributed thing, which, well, everyone watching this probably knows, like, free is great, but also comes with a whole bunch of other problems as well. So I'm happy that it's
Yes,
commercial, or
yeah.
that's paid for.
Yeah, one of my ex-bosses used to say it's quite interesting. I remember, like, in the early days of, when we started playing with WordPress and stuff. And he's quite, I mean, it depends how you look at it, but he used to say, like, free doesn't pay for my rent, quite frankly. So yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, but yeah. So today we're talking about forms. Most people think when you, first of all, yeah, forms. The great majority of websites on the internet have some sort of form. But most people, when you talk about forms, they just simply think about, a simple contact form, like some lead generation form and stuff like that. However, of course, forms are way more than that usually. To start with, can you give us some examples of where usually forms are used on top of just the contact form?
Yeah. So obviously the contact form is, number one. I like to say that, if I'm talking to, especially if I'm talking to like a freelancer or an agency owner in WordPress, Gravity Forms, I think just happened upon. I don't think it was ever really a strategy, but I think it just happened upon this nice, like, stair step approach where, sure, you can buy the $59 version of Gravity Forms, and you can just use it as a contact form if you want. And somebody might say, well, why should I do that when I can get something for free? Well, the $59 is really going to be that sort of safety net for you for support. You want support, you want updates, you want somebody to lean on when you're using Gravity Forms as just a contact form across your, smaller websites that you might be building for people. That's fantastic, and that's what support's there for, right? You ask us a question, we help you out, and especially if your customer's paying for it. But then as you start to move up, and I know a lot of people in the audience probably know this, but as you step up in our licenses and to the middle tier, to the top tier, you're getting more features. And generally that means you're building bigger sites for customers that are actually paying you more money. So it's a nice sort of like stair step of approach where, yeah, you might start out with the contact form, but then you start to need Stripe and payment options, and that's a different customer that you might be interacting with. Then you get to our elite license and you need Salesforce integration, and that's a whole different type of customer that you're dealing with. So you start to go up this value chain as well, which hopefully means you're building bigger and better sites for customers. And it runs the whole gamut of contact form to bespoke apps that people are building with Gravity Forms. And it can range from I've seen people build their own like lightweight onboarding / CRM system with Gravity Forms. I've seen people build obviously like membership sites and portfolio sites where people are paying to get access to things. You can really, mold Gravity Forms to solve a lot. And also through our third-party ecosystem, right? We have this huge ecosystem of third-party developers, especially what we call our certified developers, who are building amazing add-ons to Gravity Forms. Folks like Gravity Wiz, Gravity Kit, Cosmic Giant, they're building stuff. Jet Sloth, the folks down in Australia, they're building amazing stuff that extends Gravity Forms even more, and we could talk about that stuff as we go on here.
Yeah, in fact, I was going to mention, like, forms in general, most people, when they think of a forms plugin, any plugin, quite frankly, they think just it's a forms plugin. However, as you are saying, there are much more features than that. Now, usually you have the ability to create forms. You have the ability to integrate with things. Most probably, you have the ability to capture payments or other stuff, right? What are like
Yeah.
the most common features you'd find in a forms plugin kind of thing?
Yeah, a lot of people using it for marketing and lead generation. So again, whether that's sign up for our newsletter or sign up for our membership site or buy a digital product from me. At first you think, okay, yeah, I need a form to do that. Like I need somebody to come to a page, input content, put in their credit card, press a button, and now I have access. But it's a lot more than that when you start to put your business hat on and like maybe your business operations hat on, because it's like, what happens after? What happens after that person fills in that form? That data, that entry is so valuable to something else that happens in the business. So you either, route that information to your CRM, which can spawn other things to happen on your WordPress site. You can have it track other marketing data for you behind the scenes. So in that Gravity form, you could also be capturing, browser. What browser are the people using? What referring URL do they come from? You can start to build analytics off of that, simple newsletter sign up, which will help you, do other things in the business. So it becomes much more valuable when, number one, once you learn Gravity Forms to get used to it, and then find out how you can, unlock some of these other things. But it's a lot more than even just that transactional moment that happens.
Nice. When using forms, form plugin, it's the first time, especially in the beginning, if something fails along the process, it's often not obvious to the website owner where things break. Like
Mm.
in your experience, which parts of the form handling process usually are the most likely to fail?
Yeah, I mean, the one that a lot of people don't talk about, a lot of people like focus on the technical stuff, especially in WordPress, because everyone's really like super technical and they're looking for like optimizing how much JavaScript loads or like these third-party API calls, and like how do we optimize that, and is that what's breaking, or spam stuff. And while that's all true, that is very binary in most cases, where you see it break and you're just like, I know what the issue is because it's telling me what the error is. However, the one that doesn't get talked about the most is when site owners put together a form that doesn't work for the human being, right? Like it's just too much stuff, or they get too fancy with things like multi-page or multi-step, or click to save and come back later. They start putting all the kitchen sink into that form, and they're just not building the form right for the human to interact with it and get the right information that they need in the amount of time. I was just speaking to somebody the other day who was really struggling with it because they built this huge intake form. I mean, it's for a grant. You can apply to get a grant to get some money. So yes, it's important. They need a lot of information to do that, and no form builder in the world is going to make that process any better, because there's just a ton of information that people need. And they were saying, well, people are complaining that that the form is not saving the information. They're coming back later, and they're having issues with that stuff. The problem was that nobody knew that they could, one, create an account to save all of the fields that they filled out. They didn't know how to register for those accounts to make that happen. And it was less about the form than it was about what those expectations were. And I said, this is not like, there's hundreds of questions here. You can't just tell somebody, oh yeah, the form's over there, go take that, and expect everything to go very easily. So we actually reshaped the layout of that page to build the expectation ahead of time. Like simple things like, you need 15 to 20 minutes to finish this, right? That's the first thing the person sees. You need 15 to 20 minutes to finish this application. You need to have like these certain files ready to upload. These are all user experience things. And technically on the back end, Gravity Forms can solve these bigger forms, but a lot of folks, I think, need to focus on what that experience is going to be like for the user when you get these complex forms.
It's a very good point, which I didn't think about. But yeah, it's a very valid point. In fact, I'm sure there's a whole science and there are actually studies because you can see it even like checkout form, like what the difference would make if you have a checkout, like two-step checkout or one-step checkout, or even if you, I don't know, for example, don't enforce the postcode, if you don't ship things by enforce the postcode, and you can see actually the difference in conversion rate. Not right. There's a whole science about this, how to fine-tune
Yeah.
forms, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah. There's a lot of third-party ecosystem plugins as well that focus on conversion optimization for forms themselves, and will track all of that. Gravity Forms by default has when you go into the entries page to see the entries for a form, the form is going to tell you what that conversion rate is of that form, like how many people loaded this form and conversion rate of that form. That's at the core. That has been at the core of Gravity Forms for, I mean, at least 10 years. I don't remember how far back they implemented that, but that conversion rate is core to the experience of a form. You want to know, is this form working or not? And at the base level, what's the conversion rate look like? How many people are actually filling this out? So yeah, a lot of folks need to focus on that usability and accessibility with their forms before they even start thinking about the technical challenges that they might have, in my
interesting.
opinion.
Yeah, and yeah, no, it's good. And you said like forms can be very big. It depends what information you need from the user. One thing that's
Yeah.
interesting is that interesting forms accept inputs directly from the internet, which is basically untrusted data. You're dealing with untrusted data. From a technical standpoint, like which are the most important, yeah, validation, sanitization practices, yeah, when you're building a form, which are the most common practices you should follow, and you should make sure that they're enforced, for example.
Yeah. So, I mean, the obvious stuff, like, again, what information do we need to complete this form? I've seen, again, from a human experience, I've seen people build forms, customers build forms with like, well, of course, I want everything here. Like, give me everything. That I want every field. And sure, you could make that happen and just say, we require all of these fields. That's a thing. But I think you'll frustrate a lot of customers, especially if or people. And I don't want to think everybody's a customer filling out your form, but it could be a member, it could be an organization, it could be a school, it could be local government. Oftentimes I've seen people build it where like, we want everything, so we're going to make everything required. I wouldn't do that. On a technical level, we do have, I think it's Gravity. This is where I'm going to forget because we have so many third-party developers. I think it's Gravity Wiz has like an email validation tool. So on the technical side, when somebody's filling out this maybe untrusted data, there is an add-on from Gravity Wiz that will do email validation, and there's multi levels to like what they do in the validation side. But you can also apply that add-on to Gravity Forms if you want to technically validate, is this a spam email, is this a legitimate email, and you can actually build on top of that like other checks and balances. So there's that. Again, from an untrusted source of data, Gravity Forms by default will do things like a honeypot feature, hidden field. Nobody sees it. If it's getting filled out, generally it's going to be a spam thing, so we can check and safeguard against that. And then we have the base layer of spam protection for like Cloudflare, CAPTCHA, Cloudflare Turnstile, CAPTCHA, spam protection to validate that, to validate the form submission to make sure that it's not a spam risk. We also have a moderation add-on, which is in the Elite license plan, and the moderation will be. This is something that came from a lot of like local government. This is tangential to your question, but we had a lot of customers come from like the government and nonprofit side where spam messages that got through of people just saying bad things about that organization, and at scale, right? When you're getting dozens, hundreds, thousands of
Thousands.
form contacts, a day, people just saying things that aren't really nice. And
Yeah, I can imagine.
it's not spam, it's not a spam situation. It's just people saying bad things because this is a government complaint form or school system form or whatever. And those moderation checks will block that, so that if you have people in the organization accessing Gravity Forms and you just don't want them seeing this stuff, it'll hide that also from certain user roles, right? If you want to protect that from your manager who's using Gravity Forms. But yeah, there's tons of things, to help with all of that stuff with Gravity Forms.
Good. You mentioned spam, and you also even forms can be used, for example, for registration and stuff. And as you said, yeah, you're on the internet. A form is open to the internet, so of course, you're going to receive a lot of data. And you also mentioned the honeypot feature. For those who are not familiar with, can you explain what a honeypot feature is?
Yeah, so it's a very old school security. It's one of the first things I learned when I was in college, learning about computer systems and stuff like that. But in the case of Gravity Forms, honeypot is something that would like attract bees, right? A bee would go over to it. And the idea is you put something out there that is kind of like an obvious thing that somebody might go after, like especially if somebody's trying to send spam through a form. The honeypot feature in Gravity Forms is an invisible field that the human doesn't see, right? On the front end, if it's just a contact form, name, address, give us your message. In the back, in the code itself, the honeypot field is hidden. So any kind of robot or bot trying to fill out a form more than likely will also fill in that form because the robot sees it and the human does not see it. So if the robot sees it, the honeypot feature is like another indicator that says, nope, this is probably spam because the human's not supposed to see this field and there's data in this field. We're going to block that.
Interesting, very, very interesting. So yeah, of course, with spam comes a lot of load and on the website, and typically forms, most commonly, they either send an email, so someone submits a form and it sends an email somewhere, or it stores it in a database, or sends it to an integration or something. Let's start with the first step, with the basic emails. Emails are a big problem in WordPress. It's not because WordPress is just because shared
Yeah.
hosting, spam, and what are the most common problems you see? From my end, for example, the most common problem I've seen, by the way, when we released WP2FA plugin, or 2FA plugin, the first few months support, I thought, of course, we would be supporting people about 2FA issues, but we were supporting people with email issues because people were sending up 2FA via email. And of course, I'm not receiving the emails, etc. So emails is a big problem. And once I spoke to the guys from WP Forms, because they also have WP Forms and also have WP SMTP Pro, it's like, what's the point of having two plugins? And they answered the same question, like, because when we released WP Forms, we realized that the problem is not building forms, the problem is like people with email deliverability. It's a big problem with WordPress. So let's start with, like, why is it such a big problem in WordPress email deliverability?
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to that trust. I mean, this is like, here's how I perceive it, and here's how I try to like boil it down for the average user of Gravity Forms. Is yes, WordPress and shared hosting and email is a big technical problem. Sometimes the host doesn't just flat out disables the send mail services of WordPress and nothing leaves, right?
Yeah.
So you need a solution to send mail from your WordPress website. And it comes down to, I don't know, decades and decades of spammers who have spammed the entire internet and our inboxes. And now the whole internet has to defend itself from spam, which to me boils down to trust. And we need to have a trusted source. And these transactional email services that now sit in the middle of your WordPress website to your customer's inbox or your inbox for these Gravity Forms, we need to close that gap with some trust. And what these transactional email services say is, we're a trusted service. We do all we can do to fight spam. You can connect our service to your WordPress website, and we'll help deliver that email to your end user or to your team or organization or whatever. Unfortunately, it comes at a cost, as most things do. Most of them have some free plans, which is great. But if you're doing a lot of email, you need to pay. Not much, but maybe $100 a year. Depends on how much email you send. But these services act as that trusted layer. And Gravity Forms recently released Gravity SMTP, which you can download if you're a developer customer, developer license holder with Gravity Forms, an elite license holder with Gravity Forms, or a nonprofit license holder with Gravity Forms. This is a free product. It's not an add-on, it's a standalone product. It's our first like standalone product from Gravity Forms. And this is what's going to help you glue these services together. You're going to use Gravity SMTP, you're going to install it on WordPress, and then connect up one of these transactional services so that these emails can hit your inbox. And there's a bunch of stuff that it does, makes it look good. You can search logs, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, much like our colleagues or friends at WP Forms, they have their service. Now we have our service because, quite frankly, we're sick and tired of supporting their service because we had a lot of customers who also used other SMTP plugins, and it was high time that we had our own so that we could support it and then build in the features that helped Gravity Forms.
So basically what you're doing is, because by default, WordPress relies on PHP mail function, and you are, of course, now bypassing that one. There's nothing, as such, there is nothing wrong with PHP mail. It's just, this, as you said, the spam, etc. So, of course, most web hosts stop it. However, there's another aspect to email deliverability, DNS. As soon as you start looking into emails, you can have the best SMTP plugin, etc. But you're going to face, especially if you are not technical, you are going to face things like SPF, DKIM, DMIRC. Can you at least give an overview to users, like what are these and how can you go about these things usually? Because it is, I'm technical. I've worked in my early career. I worked for a company which we used to do anti-spam software, so I'm very familiar with emails and how they work. But even then, nowadays, there's so many different things that you can set up that it becomes a bit of a, let alone if someone has a new e-commerce business, they're selling, I don't know, some jewelry, and they have to deal with SPF, DMIRC, and all these stuff.
Yeah.
So can you explain to us, like, what are these, maybe what options there are, and how can they are set up, or how they work?
Yeah. So the good news is I have a whole crash course on like what all of this this SMTP stuff is, and with Gravity SMTP and Gravity Forms, totally free course at learn.gravity.com. Go to the courses section there at learn.gravity.com, and you can take a quick 15, 20-ish minute crash course. And I'm going to cheat and pull that up in front of me right now so I can remember
but it's good you're mentioning it. We'll edit in the show notes as well. There's a
course, So I like to, when you look at the stack, I'll try to make this quick because it is a real technical kind of boring concept. But when you start to look at, okay, I have to set up DMARC, I have to set up DKIM, SPF records, transactional email service. Luckily, I say luckily, but luckily some of these transactional email services do make it kind of easy for you to find out where to do this in your DNS provider. But again, these are all these technical terms are the building blocks for this trusted system of sending email back and forth. I like to look at them as little ID cards for the internet, so that when you're sending an email, you're sort of exchanging ID cards, like, this is a trusted source, this is the signature where it came from, and this is the record that points to it, right? So the general three, which you mentioned before, are SPF, DMARC, and DKIM. SPF is sort of like saying this is the authorized senders. These are the people that can send from this domain. It's a signal to say we trust this source. DMARC is more of a digital seal, providing that things weren't tampered with, like this email, along this route that it came from, it's not getting altered or changed when it left the original sender. And then DKIM is more of a way of how the domain handles failed emails, or part of it anyways, how it handles failed emails. So if it doesn't go through, is this thing just going to keep hitting and sending emails, or does it, fail silently with some kind of record? Yes, none of this is easy. None of it is straightforward. And for the average user, it does melt their brains. It melts my brain. But these transactional services, they do make it a lot easier. And at Gravity Forms, we are trying to also make it as easy as possible, with maybe like a one-click kind of thing coming soon, but we're still working on that.
I was going to mention, I don't think there is any service that can configure these for you.
No, right now it's all the major vendors, your own SMTP service, Microsoft's Outlook.com service, Gmail, and stuff like that. You can authenticate with all of that stuff. But a service from Gravity Forms is definitely high on the list, because a lot of folks, are still saying, this is great, we can connect this stuff up, but they're scratching their heads once they get to, whatever, Brevo, SendGrid and all these other different services.
That's interesting. So as we were saying, yes, when you have a form, typically the most common options, you either send an email or you store it in the database. In terms of trade-offs, like what are the trade-offs between storing form entries in a database versus relying on email?
That's a good question. The technical folks will say, like, obviously your database can get, really large and all of this stuff, but Gravity Forms entries is, again, I'm not a developer, but I've been told that it's very efficient and very effective. And we've actually had a lot of people. Well, let me back up. From the customer's perspective, you obviously don't want to rely on just the email hitting your inbox, because then what, right? Like if it's critical information, let's say you're just a lawn care company and you cut grass for a living and do landscaping for customers. If you're just relying on that inbox, which I know a lot of people do, bad things can happen. You can delete it, you can lose stuff, you can run out of storage, your inbox gets full. As an agency owner, that used to happen all the time with my clients because they would never delete anything in their inbox and then no mail would go in. Thus, we have the entries in Gravity Forms to log in and display that stuff. And this is why, like, when I talk to freelancers and agency owners, you have to position Gravity Forms or, whatever, any form solution that's storing your customers' data inside of WordPress. This is real valuable stuff. This is business critical information. Again, from that small lawn care company to some nonprofit organization, you have a lot of intelligence in there. People want to do business with you. People have purchased from you. People want to do marketing or just have a conversation with you. So you need to look at this stuff as like, your own thing that is super valuable to the business. So we don't want to rely just on email. The great thing is with Gravity Forms, with add-ons, you can send this information as they contact you to your CRM, to your marketing platform. You can save it to a Google Drive. You can use Zapier to connect it up to a million different things. So it's definitely it's great to have it in both places, but I would not just rely on that. We have another product called Gravity Flow, which if you are somebody who needs things to happen with other humans when somebody submits things, like if you have like certain requests that come in and a human needs to verify that, Gravity Flow allows you to have like this dashboard inside of WordPress that says, okay, I've received this entry. I've seen, what Robert has sent me. And now, do I approve this or do I deny this? Is there like a yes, no thing here that I have to do? And if I say yes, it can go off and do something else. If I say no, it can go off and do something else. So it's almost like human interaction. It's not automation, like it just goes and does its own thing. A human has to approve different things. And that becomes a great tool for people who rely on, just email in their organization to forward things off. You can build out all kinds of, really cool stuff with Gravity Flow as well.
Just curiosity, in the WordPress ecosystem, which are the most common type of integrations you've seen? As in, like from a form, which are the most common type of integrations? ARPs, you mentioned.
Oh yeah,
CRMs?
yeah, definitely. I mean, definitely newsletters. Newsletter services, the Mailchimps, the ConvertKits, anything like that, and payment gateways. Obviously, is way up there. Stripe, Square, PayPal, etc. Those are huge. And then, of course, any kind of, nowadays, of course, any kind of automation stuff that's going to go out to a Zapier, to a Make, which then might go off and do other things. Gravity Wiz has a really cool add-on called Populate Anything, which will, it does two things. It can take data in from anywhere and put it in your Gravity form, like you could have a standalone database running in your basement and you can connect up to that database and pull in stuff into Gravity forms, or you can populate out to anything, like a database in your basement. Like it connects up to all kinds of sources, and that just really unlocks Gravity forms to do a zillion different things. And Gravity Kit has all of like the visual stuff. This is kind of going to that previous question of if entries is so valuable to your business, Gravity Kit will allow you to build graphs, reporting, sortable tables of all that information. So we have customers use that, and they build their own little lightweight sort of like sales dashboards or reporting dashboards for their customers. And everyone's happy when they do stuff like that.
Nice. You mentioned even before, like you mentioned a couple of times, payments. Just curious. So usually you accept payments if you have an e-commerce store, membership websites, or stuff like that. And usually, if you have a membership website, if you use a membership plugin, they usually have built-in payments. If you use e-commerce, WooCommerce, EDD, usually you have as well the whole payments integration, etc. What are the most common scenarios you've seen where people use a forms plugin to accept payments?
Certainly for us, again, nonprofit donations, nonprofit companies, our friends over at JetSloth, who are the certified developers, well, I guess also, and Gravity Wiz, they support a lot of other WooCommerce stuff that happens too. So you can actually take in products into a Gravity form and buy through Gravity forms. There's a bunch of stuff that they do. The Gravity Forms itself has a user registration add-on and of course I'm going to forget the name of the add-on, but it connects up to custom post types and advanced custom post types, I believe is what it's called. And we've seen people just use it as a directory builder or a profile builder, where users can just buy to gain access to make something on the website. So like a lightweight membership tool, where the user creates a user account. You had to buy that user account through Gravity Forms, and then after that, you're using our add-on to create that custom post type, which might be that person's profile. It could be, selling an item. It could be a million different things that people use it for. So Gravity Forms slots in really well in some kind of like lightweight e-commerce solutions.
Interesting. I honestly, once you mentioned nonprofits, it just clicked. But yeah, usually I was like, okay, if you have an e-commerce store, you go for WooCommerce. You're not going to start everything with a forms plugin. But yeah, it makes sense. Of course, you have, especially on more popular websites, as websites grow, there's a chance that suddenly you receive a large burst of submissions. Like, do typically form plugins have some sort of scalability buffers or some sort of checks when it comes to controlling how many submissions are submitted, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, there are things that you can set up, like limitations to Gravity Forms for sure. But I was on a webinar the other day, and it was about performance, and I was hard pressed. I mean, I know it sounds, I'm the guy that works at Gravity Forms, so I know I'm biased, but I was looking for in our past tickets, support tickets, to try to find like a performance issue that people were running into at scale. And I found one from last year that we patched for a customer, but this particular customer had over 2,000 forms with 60 to 200 questions each on the forms. So this was a very big edge case where one and these were all dynamically loaded in, and I don't want to say the name of the client, but they're all dynamically loaded in an e-commerce context. Like people are buying things, and it's like, once you get to the scale of a 2,000 forms with maybe an average of 100 questions each, and it's all dynamic, like this stuff is all people are buying things all at the same time. Hey, okay, we've hit an edge case. And we patched it, and the customer was happy. I mean, they didn't have any problems. So I've yet to see a like real big performance issue. And hosting's getting so great these days, it actually becomes more of like an infrastructure issue than it became like a Gravity Forms issue.
Interesting. I often, even I don't know, to be honest, is there a way to automatically test a form like test that, listen, you submit it automatically and you confirm, you get the email, you confirm that there's database entry. Are there any online services or some sort of solutions for these things?
There are online services that do it. The names I don't know off the top of my head right now, but this is something that a lot of people have requested, is that sort of like automated. I think the first phrase that comes to my head is like that automated regression testing. Like if you change something on the site, is it broken, and setting up these tests. There are some third-party services that will do it. I don't know them off the top of my head. Again, another call out to our friends at Gravity Wiz. They just created a new add-on for developers, which brings in a bunch of, it literally just came out like 2 days ago, and I haven't had a chance to go through it. But it has a whole bunch of stuff in there for developers, and I think there's some kind of like testing feature in there. So definitely check out Gravity Wiz. I think it's a free plugin that they put out. So definitely check that out. And Gravity Forms has this concept of feeds, which every form has a feed to connect things up to, and you can have multiple feeds within a form. So if you need to connect it to Zapier, to MailChimp, to Stripe, all this other stuff, and Gravity Wiz also puts out this, I think it's called replay feeds feature, where you can kind of go through and execute all the feeds again. So if you do find an issue with something not connecting, like maybe an API key changes or an API key expires or something like that from one of your services, it's still stored in Gravity Forms, and you can replay that feed feature to send all of that data out again. It's not exactly what you asked for, but it's a symptom to that problem when that problem
It can
happens.
solve, the issue. In fact, you mentioned,
Yeah.
as you said, like for example, sometimes maybe an API key expired or something, or sometimes even the remote server with which you have an integration is not responding. So
Yeah.
in that case, clearly, because one of my next questions. So basically, form plugins usually have some sort of buffer, because the last thing you want is, because a remote service that you are connected to is offline, then the form times out or something. So
Yeah.
it's common practice nowadays for form plugins, right, to cater for such scenarios.
Yeah. I'm probably not the guy to ask that one on how we do it, but I'm sure we do it. And I know that through Gravity Form, a lot of people sort of miss this too until they actually have a support question. But for the developers out there and the agencies out there, the Gravity Forms debug mode and logging mode is really robust. And you can turn it on. You don't run it all the time because it's collecting everything. But if you turn on the logging mode, you can download the logs for like everything that's happening for all your add-ons and all your connections, and for individual forms. And oftentimes our support team will obviously use that as the first place to start. But if you're a Gravity Forms user now and you don't know about it, definitely, when you're running into an issue that you can't figure out, do the debug mode, turn that on, and the logs are right in WordPress, so you can just download them right to your desktop, and that'll have all kinds of debug information for you.
Nice. We earlier on we also mentioned spam, and I'm sure a lot of forms are used also for user registration processes. So you're going to get a lot of spam and fake accounts and stuff like that. And you also mentioned, it's normal for forms plugins to have integrations with captcha services like Cloudflare, Turnstile, etc. We cannot not talk about AI, especially nowadays. There are cases where AI is now solving captcha. How do you see the future of the whole anti-spam, fake registrations, control? Yeah.
This is a tough one, man, because here's what I don't, and this is not a direct answer, but this is sort of like a soapbox moment for me. But I love Cloudflare. I've been using their services a lot lately with like AI and page workers and all this stuff, and trying out different things. But they sort of like had this whole this whole emphasis on like, oh, we're going to protect the web and protect you against like AI bots and all this stuff. And then they just launched a scraping service yesterday. And I was just like, wait a
Yeah.
minute. Yeah, I thought we were protecting against this stuff. And now you are launching a service to do the stuff. Like, how does this make sense? I've seen the same thing with Google and YouTube talk about how, the YouTube did whatever their start of the year, they did a conference or whatever it's called. I forget what it's called. And they talked about, how they're like trying to battle against AI generated content and flagging it and making sure everyone understands they're watching AI generated content. But then on the same side, their creator tools has all this AI stuff in to make like AI content. And I'm like, what's happening here? I mean, we're showcasing one thing and then we're battling it at the same time. I have no idea where this is all going. It's definitely getting more complicated, and it's definitely making it harder for the site owner. I think we'll see a rise of costs for hosting companies. Like your average hosting company cost is, it's been a while since I've checked like what an entry price point is for a hosting account, but I doubt it's $2 a month anymore.
I doubt it as well.
It's
I doubt it.
yeah, it's
I
probably
doubt it
ten
as well. I
dollars a
have no
month
idea.
at minimum, and we're going to see those costs rise because they're just getting bombarded by, either what air quotes valid AI connections, where now you're like, oh, I could just talk to my WordPress site and have it change the homepage for me, to the the spam attacks and stuff like that. So it's a tough question to answer, but it's just going to cost us more money at the end.
Yeah,
At the
yeah,
end of the
yeah,
day.
and AI in general is making life for many easier. It's a double-edged sword. I see it. It's making life better because you can move faster using it as a tool, but it's also making life a bit more difficult. It's not the first. It's not just us. I've spoken to a few other developers. It's becoming very common. We receive an email from someone like, "Hey, we had this issue with your plugin. I spoke to AI, and this is what you should do. Here's your answer." Like, I wish it worked exactly, but it doesn't work like that. People are
Yeah,
studying. Yeah.
it's yeah. I mean, one thing is great because you can develop these solutions, but I mean, I don't have any direct examples from our support team. I should ask them what they're experiencing with AI, and I will after this call. Um, it's nice to be like, oh, you can make your own add-on for Gravity Forms, like something that Gravity Forms can't do for you right now. Maybe it's cool that you can make that, but you at the same time you can't also expect us to support that, right? And I think that's a gap which people might learn over time. I don't know. Like, did you restart your computer, which was like tech support number one 20 years ago? It's going to be
Yes.
now it's going to be like, well, did you use AI to make this? And if you did, like, I can't help you do that because we didn't write the code. I saw somebody in a freelancer Facebook group the other day post a question that their customer vibe coded a CRM on their own, and they wanted to know if they could connect it up to their WordPress site. Like, could that freelancer go and just connect it up to their WordPress site? I was like, geez, we're either in for a moment where we're going to make a bunch of money and like supporting this stuff from people, or it's just going to be chaos where customers are going to have this expectation that they can just throw anything at us and we're going to have to support it.
Yeah, it's the same here. Not just us. As I said, I'm in touch with many other developers, and it's the same feedback. You either have customers on supporting you, oh, this is how you should do it because I checked on ChatGPT, or as you said, they vibe code something. It's like, yeah, I'm trying to use this plugin, it doesn't work. It's like, did you download it from WordPress.org? Is it a plugin? Was it like, no, I just vibe coded it. Like, yeah, it's it's as you said,
Yeah.
some people, yeah, they expect you to troubleshoot. It's like, I'm not going to troubleshoot. So, and even if you ask them questions like, do you know what it's doing or why it's doing this? Like, no, it's just code. I have no idea. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a bit of a double-edged sword. But again, as I said, it's a very good tool as well. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Before we end this episode, I'm in the market for I'm a new website user. I'm in the market for a Forms plugin. What should I look for if I want to choose? As we know, as you mentioned, there are quite a few available out there. What are like the
Yeah.
key points, the key features I should look for in a Forms plugin?
Yeah, I mean, especially through the lens of AI these days, still that human support is where you want to start. That's where you want to be grounded in, because yeah, lots of people can do something really quick with AI, but are you going to want to continue to support that and think about it and maintain it? So support is still going to be critical, and Gravity Forms has great support, of course, and I think that's where you want to start. You want to start by looking at how you get in contact with support. What is the support guarantee, if there is one? What does the documentation look like? How do you get access to the documentation and other like learning materials to do things? And that's first and foremost. And then it's, what's the reputation? Does it have the add-on for me? Can it do the thing that I'm looking for? And more importantly, if you're a freelancer agency, like if I'm going to hand this off to somebody, do I trust in that relationship? Like, do I trust, like, if I'm not here anymore and they have to go contact support or they have to learn how to do something on their own, does this brand lean into that? And hopefully that's where you start. And then of course, yeah, you start looking at the feature list. If you have the feature there and it has what you need and it makes sense to you, then it's going to work. But I think we're all going to do better as a whole WordPress ecosystem when we can understand like who we're doing business with and why, and are they there to support you do it, or is it more just like it's just a flash sale and yeah, you got it super cheap, but nobody's there to help you.
Yeah. It's nice that you mentioned this point, the human point, that there's humans, because yeah, nowadays I see it even on LinkedIn. Like you see job applications, and you see like, oh, by the way, your CVs are going to be reviewed by a human. It became something like, yeah, because
Yeah.
nowadays it's expected that AI handle this. Just this week, I could try to contact someone on support. It was so frustrating. I mean, I understand there's a place for AI, but after 2 3 responses, ideally you should get to a human or something if you see it's going to be. But yeah,
Yeah.
when you're stuck with AI and you just cannot get out of this AI loop and get in touch with a human, it's so frustrating. So frustrating.
I don't know. This is not a WordPress thing, but again, this is on that AI thing, and half of me understands that we're living in this wild AI bubble ish right now. But I see all these people talking about like launching their, I'm going to replace HubSpot, and I
Yeah.
think I jokingly tweeted that out the other day because I was like, you know what? I'm sick and tired of seeing everyone say this. So let me just see what Codex will give me. And so I ran it, but there's no way. Okay, even if you build something that is seemingly a replica, it's a replica, yeah, on your local system, not at scale, not with millions of users and all these things happening at once. But forget all that. Forget the technical side. It's the support side. Like, what happens when somebody is going to want support from you? I don't see people forward thinking about the business side of it, which hasn't changed. Are you just going to throw AI chatbots at everything? Your marketing, your sales, your support, your development? What do you think you're going to do? Just sit on the island
Yeah.
and do nothing? And all of this stuff is just going to be, great for you. We're not there yet. And it's just, I understand that a lot of this is marketers and people grabbing attention with AI stuff, but it is getting a little frustrating to be like, dude, you didn't launch that $1 million business this weekend because one, you don't have a customer yet, and two, when you get that customer, you're in for a rude awakening when they start asking you for help. So it still comes down to that human connection and that support side for me.
Yeah, yeah. I think I saw your post, to be honest, on LinkedIn. And yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with you. At the end of the day, business is about relationships, and you
Right.
build a relation with someone, and that's how you sell. So yeah, just building with AI, as I said, it's a great tool, but yeah, there's difference between building something which you mentioned that runs locally on your computer versus
Yeah.
building something for hundreds, thousands of users. There's a big difference.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Matt. Thanks for your time. Thanks for sharing your knowledge. Before we end this episode, can you tell us where people can get in touch with you, learn more about you, your podcast, Gravity Forms?
Yeah. So gravityforms.com or just gravity.com. Search for Breakdown in your favorite podcast app if you want to stay connected with the Gravity Forms stuff. And if you just want to be entertained and you love space, search for our other podcast, Crew Collective. You can search for that in your favorite podcast app as well.
Nice. But you also have your own Met report.
I have my own, yeah,
right?
in my own podcast at thewpminute.com. Yep.
Nice. Thanks a lot, Matt. Thanks everyone for joining us, for following this episode. A quick FYI, next week we'll be at CloudFest, so we won't be airing live. However, we already have a recorded episode, so we'll be airing it next week, but most probably the week after one. But yeah, we'll keep you updated on the LinkedIn. Thanks everyone.
Is that the
Thanks,
roller
Matt, for
coaster? Is that the roller coaster event?
Yes, it's the biggest theme park in Europe, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah,
Nice.
it's this in Bavaria, Germany. So yeah, will you be
Very
there?
nice.
Will you be at?
I will not.
be
I
I
won't.
see.
I'll be at PressConf in April. That's where I'm going
I see.
next.
Nice. And will you be at WordCamp Europe? Maybe.
Also no.
I see.
But some people from the Gravity Forms team will be there. I know that.
Yes, I know, because we will be sponsoring, and we're last week we're choosing the booth where it will be, and I saw the Gravity Forms booth. So I said,
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Thanks everyone, and yeah, we'll keep in touch. Thanks, Matt. Thanks.
Thanks, Robert.